Hello there and welcome to Racehorse Movies, the show where two film fans take a racing sheet from last week, pick a random horse name for each other, and from that name pitch a movie. In the pitch, to flesh out our movie ideas, we may include such things as stars, directors, composers, best boys, and stable boys. Maybe not that last one. Hoping none of our ideas have to be put behind a screen and shot. The sky's the limit, the horses are on the starting line, the jockeys are frothing. It's time for Racehorse Movies. Hello there everyone and welcome to another episode, not even another in fact, the penultimate episode of Racehorse Movies for this season, guys. So I'm very excited. We are absolutely amped up to deliver a couple of great pitches for you. I'm joined by the ever-glorious Graham Thomas.
Oh, thank you very much. Hello everybody.
And lest I leave myself out, I am of course Luke Sell, and you are all very, very welcome to the Mind Cinema. We've got a couple of treats for you guys in store tonight.
We certainly do. Before we get into the horses that we've picked and where we picked them from, I want to learn a little bit about you. How are you? What have you been up to?
I have been to a festival, Graham.
You did?
I've been having an absolutely wonderful time in a field in the sunshine, surrounded by lovely people and lots of brilliant music, mate. So I am on cloud, whatever it is that is high.
End of the Road Festival, was it?
End of the Road. Sorry, I haven't even mentioned the name of it. Yes, indeed. Which
There's so many festivals these
happens in the middle of sort of nowhere in the Llama-Tree Gardens in Tollard Royal every September, man. Always sees out the sort of like the gigging year for me.
Amazing. Any standouts?
Where Wilco were a really wonderful opener. The last dinner party opened the Thursday evening, and they were absolutely like, keep your ears peeled for them. They were a mixture of Queen meets even more arch kind of pop, and it really set the tone for the entire weekend of absolutely brilliant, man. So instead of me harping on, we do like a bit of a mix, a compilation, don't we, on this fine podcast? So I will, should your ears desire it, people, put a little compilation of everyone that I saw at the festival in the show notes. So check that out and enjoy listening. Hopefully nearly as much as I did in front of them in real life.
Nice, well done.
Dude, so what have you been doing with yourself while I've been out in fields and whatnot?
So what have I been up to? Well, day before last, I went to the BFI on the South Bank, and I saw, as part of the Acting Hard season of programmes being put on, I saw a 35mm print of Shane Meadows' masterpiece, Dead Man's Shoes.
How man.
With a Q&A afterwards, which was amazing. It's a full-on watch. It's got everything in it. It's so funny. It's so heartbreaking. It's really scary. It's like give a brief synopsis without giving away the game.
Please do. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a film made in 2003 or 4, I believe, by Shane Meadows, and written by Shane Meadows and Paddy Considine, who plays the central character of this film. It's set up in Matlock, up in the north. It follows Paddy Considine's character, Richard, who's the older brother of a boy with learning disabilities called Anthony, and Richard comes back to Matlock to track down the adult bullies who messed around with his younger brother, and like an avenging angel. And it's really tender and sweet, the relationship between him and his brother, and the fury and the guilt and the sadness of Richard because he was away in the army while his younger brother was being bullied, so not being there to protect him and coming back. And you spend the majority of the film really with the bullies, following them around. They're all grown men who are living in Matlock, really scuzzy, horrible dudes that you see in pubs and
doing nasty deals
clubs,
and
doing nasty deals and just being really
running
grubby.
The village.
Yes, running the village. So real small town crooks who think they're leviathans and beasts. They're probably bullies at school who've never really grown out of that mentality. And you follow them around, and they're just bumbling idiots. And you follow them around as this terror is wrought upon them. It's a masterful film. A lot of it was improvised. A lot of it was shot in 18 days, which is mental.
Wet, man. Maybe that helps add that incredibly tense atmosphere to it, like the energy, energy that film has. I guess you get that with such a short shoot.
So Dead Man's Shoes, and I saw it on 35mm, which I was very happy about because there's not many of those prints knocking them out. It was amazing. And what about you? What have you been up to, cinema-wise or film-wise?
Film-wise, I have watched Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I believe it was.
Okay.
That was very shiny, wasn't it? It was just
It was very shiny. It was very long.
It was shiny, it was long, it was very nostalgic, and I don't mean that in a good way. That's an insult. I didn't think we needed to do things like...
What kind of an insult? That's a terrible insult. They tell them that's an insult.
Yeah, I thought it was lovely, which is an insult, by the way.
I just seem to have bypassed my sarcasm, Chip. Lovely hat.
Yeah, it was kind of like this big sprawling thing. It wasn't as bad as Crystal Skull. I liked Ford got to do some fording. I saw some light in his eyes. I liked the way he bounced off a Feedwaller Bridge. I thought their relationship was excellent, and she really lifted the grumpy, sad sack Ford to where he needed to be to keep the film fairly propulsive.
Yeah, she gave a lot of energy.
Just a ton of CGI, man, and it's such a shame. I won't go into the ending, but I kind of love the endings. Like, yeah, okay, good.
So bonkers.
Yeah, I was in at that point because I guess I spent 2 hours, so I had to be because I was like, fine.
Yes. It is a bonkers ending, but then, all the endings to Indiana Jones films are completely batshit.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
You have to.
It was okay. It wasn't a disaster. I was expecting a disaster. It was actually like pretty entertaining. It's just a shame it's 2.5 hours long.
Halve all the action scenes.
Yes.
The opening action scene literally goes on for 30 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, so it was not bad. I can't heartily recommend, but I was expecting a disaster, as I said, and it wasn't quite that. And then after that, I watched the last voyage of the Demeter, which was again long. It was dude, what are you doing making a horror movie 2 hours when you are setting it on a boat with like four people? There's only like 5 crew members.
Yes.
One of whom, at one point, is brilliant. They find someone, and I so wanted someone to shout, "Captain, Captain, we found some exposition in the hold," when they bring up a girl that they find in the hold who's stowed away, who just starts like dumping so much completely unnecessary information about Dracula on the audience. We can be hitting a real tense, tight 90-minute horror movie that just gives me a little bit of a spin on these 3 pages from Dracula. That sounds like a fantastic pitch. I'm up for that.
It does sound like a good idea, yeah. That's the kind of thing we'd do.
Yes.
It's a good idea. Well, it's kind of a good idea. I'd imagine someone like Mike Flanagan might have done something quite nice with that material. Not been a great film run for you then of late. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Yeah, I know. I will. I'll pick things up for next week. I promise, guys. I won't just come and complain about 2 films. But yeah, those were my my swings and my misses, I guess.
Well, we've done, I think, other than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, buzzer alert for mentioning it. We've been pretty positive about every film that we've watched on this podcast so far. So I don't think it's too bad to come in and say, it wasn't up to scratch for us. I think,
Yeah.
There we go. Well, we've done that. Should we get out of the foyer and into the cinema, out of our car and into our dreams?
Should we get ushing? Oh, I need to do a quick emergency announcement first, actually. Last episode, and Lloyd has already had a word with me about this, I did refer to Lloyd as Floyd a couple of times. He has been putting cigarettes out on my scripts. He has been thoroughly miffed for the entire week, so I needed to publicly get this out here. Lloyd, I'm forever in your debt, and I'm extremely sorry that I got so excited by your mere presence I mispronounced your name a couple of times last week. Do forgive me.
I did notice that, and in fact, I did it myself as well.
That was my fault.
But I told him that you did it.
I thought you would have, and I accepted it. Do you see how quickly I rolled over as you said? I was like, yeah, it was definitely me. You can definitely blame me. So yeah, many apologies, Lloyd, and please don't splice anything into any of the Mind Cinema screenings tonight. Okay, I think I'll get you a pack of Pall Malls. We'll be absolutely copacetic again. Okay. So with that out of the way, and with my face reddened with shame, shall we get on and pitch a couple of movies, my man?
Let's do this. Okay, so here we are in the Mind Cinema, and last week we went to the 355 at Bath, and I chose for you, I believe, the horse named Stiletto.
You absolutely did, and in return, I believe I gave you Fair Dinkum.
You did indeed, and I believe I went first last week, so I should go first this week. No, I went second last week, so I should go first this week.
You did, absolutely, yes.
And one of the reasons why I am going to go first this week is just to get out of the way now. My apologies.
He's getting on his knees here, folks. What's happening?
For possibly offending an entire nation because you gave me, it's your fault, because you gave me a horse called Fair Dinkum. And that doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room to come up with something that isn't A litany of stereotypes.
Hey, look, I mean,
It's like a 90-minute Castlemaine 4X offer. It's basically coming your way. Okay. Christ, here we go. All right, so we open our...
that's the spirit.
So we open on a typically like massive vista of the outback, like a huge drone shot. 1917, the Berkeley Tableland, Northern Territory. We have a night scene, very high vista night scene, and it's a cattle drove. So like 3,000 head of steer are all kind of calmly herded together, set up for the night. There's an encampment nearby for the cattle drover and the other stockmen, which are the horsemen who shifted these huge amounts of livestock over unbelievable distances. Incredible feats of horsemanship and outdoorsery, I guess.
Yeah.
And we meet a guy called Nat and his daughter Alice, who's 19, 20, something like that. And this is her first drove. And they're walking through the camp at night. Everything's really peaceful and nice. The cattle are all looked after. She's really exhausted, but she's, got her spirits up. The father's really proud of her, and he says that, there's only 3 months left of this. They've been going for like a year and a half. There's only 3 months left of the drove to Danjara to deliver the cattle, and then it's an easy trek to their new family home in Durban. And she says she's looking forward to becoming a teacher there, and she jokes that, if she ever sits on a horse again, it'll be too soon. And they speak to the other cattlemen, the stockmen, and they say that everything's set for the night, and some will continue to keep watch. And then Alice's brother Francis and the cook Cardi, they set off on a night ride to establish the camp for the next stop.
Yeah.
So the family say goodbye to the brother Francis, who's an experienced drover, and the cook Cardi. They go off. Alice pats down her horse and prepares to get into her swag, which is another Australian term there for a sleeping bag. There you go. See,
Well done,
father comes
well
up to her. The father comes up to her and hugs as he looks out at the scene, and he takes a little crucifix pendant out of his neck and kisses it and says, "Family, prayer, work." And he hands it over to Alice, who also kisses his little crucifix chain. And he hugs her very tightly, and she says goodnight, gets into her swag, and she watches as the father walks into the night back to the other side of the camp to talk to the stockman and do business. This is his profession. She's kind of just on for the ride, but she's doing very well, just keeping up and surviving.
Yeah.
Later that night, a gang of rustlers, or duffers, another bit of Australian slang there. There you go. Led by Blake Rivers. They're watching over the encampment. And they sneak in, moving between the animals coolly and calmly. But we also, as they're stalking through, the camera comes down and we also follow a snake. Brackets, type unknown, close brackets. I didn't research that part. Yeah, that's right. As it goes through, the rustlers silently kill one of the stockmen who's just like cantering or just trotting around the perimeter of all these cows. They pull him off the horse.
Yeah, I can see that happen. One swift, fluid movement and he's gone.
They're about to move into the camp to kill the rest of the drovers when the snake is disturbed by hoof, and it leaps up and it bites one of the rustlers on the leg, and obviously he screams and just shoots off his gun in the air because it's a sudden shock. This noise alerts the camp and it also spooks the herd of cows. So they go crazy. They collect crazy and embark on what is known as a rush, which is basically a stampede.
Right.
Nat wakes up and yells, "Rush!" as 3,000 head of cattle go berserk. They stampede from their holdings at nighttime, charging through the camp. Like the fires are getting knocked over. We can imagine some tents going up.
Yeah.
The grassland starts getting kicked up into flame. Maybe some steer are set alight. Tarps are burning. It's horrible chaos. Alice obviously is terrified. She's inside her swag, her sleeping bag. She wakes up and she's trying to get out of it. And she looks up and she sees the stampede heading towards her. And you can see them coming. She's trying to get out of her sleeping bag. She gets out just in time, but is broadsided by a cow, and she flies into a tree trunk. She screams for her dad. Nat is on the other side of the compound trying to...
Yeah, you can see a tiny bit of his head through all of the herds of cows going by. You get snatches of them in the gaps between the animals.
He's screaming for her and screaming for his men, trying to get things in order, because these rushes, these stampedes, happen quite a lot because of things like snake bites or a bush rat or a lightning strike in the distance. Anything could
bush rat.
Them. Bushrat, there you go.
Sorry, we have got a Ozometer in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen for all you listeners, and it's been going great guns.
And so they're trying to get people away from the camp, get the cows away from the fire, just trying to get some order. Alice, she screams for her father. Nat's on the other side of the compound, and he's screaming also for her. And she scrambles up this tree so that she can get out of the way, and she's holding onto this tree trunk as all the cows are stampeding around her, and they're barreling into this tree, which is a very dry wooden tree, and it's getting...
Yeah, taking little chunks of flying off.
The father on his horse, he sees her climbing up the tree, and he waves to her, and she waves, and she's just, I'm okay. So then he's got to go back to sorting out this mess, saving the cattle because they're so valuable. Meanwhile, Blake and his gang have mounted horses, and they're riding around desperately trying to calm the stampede, because obviously they didn't set the stampede off. Because despite, as I've written here, despite their arseholery, they've come for the cattle, so they must try and gather them up, right? Their cattle are so valuable. So they kind of, Nat and his men and the gang are kind of working together in a way.
For now,
kind of.
Yeah.
So they're doing the same kind of moves, trying to herd the cows and calm them down. But Blake and his men kind of... with the calmed cows, they're driving a wedge between them, trying to siphon off some of the calmer ones and trying to get them away so they can rustle them and be off.
Yeah.
And then the gunfire starts because they don't want this to happen. Then there's mounted shootout, more cows going crazy. So Alice watches through the smoke of the bushfire as more and more cows stampede past her, crashing into the tree trunk, and it's crumbling. And she tries to call out for help. As the tree is about to be swept away by the stampede, she sees her father in the distance run out of ammo on his gun, and he throws it to the ground. And he just, on his horse, just charges towards the nearest bad guy, who happens to be Blake. And then Blake shoulders his rifle and, calm as a cucumber amongst all the chaos, just shoots Nat clean off his horse.
Oh, mate.
And just as that happens, the tree trunk snaps, and the tree falls down and crashes onto a cow that is charging past, snapping the cow's neck. Alice falls down on the ground. The cow falls down dead next to her. The tree falls on top of them both. She's wedged in between them, and the stampede is over. Should I put some drums in?
Dude, I so nearly went bam, 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 bam. The dust settles.
The dust settles. Stampede is over, and then during the aftermath, we'll get the calmness, and then maybe a fade to black, and then the sound of spurs brings the scene back up. And Blake and his men have rounded up and secured a good 1,000 cattle away from the fire and the destroyed camp. Some of them are keeping watch, and the others are kicking up the debris and the supplies and seeing what they can scavenge, what's left, what's intact. Blake finds the mangled and shot Nat on the ground. He takes his watch. He takes his documents, very important. He takes his journal, and he takes a Bowie knife from him. And Blake looks at the handle of the knife, and he sees etched in it, Fair Dinkum. He pockets the knife. And then from that little scene, we hear a gurgle and a moan, and Blake tracks it to find the gang member who was bitten by the snake, one of his own men. He's still alive. Miraculously, he wasn't trampled by witches, but he is still bitten by a snake. Blake gets down onto his knees and cradles the man. The man closes his eyes, and Blake says, cattle, horses, men, in that order. And he takes the Bowie knife and puts it into the back of the guy's neck.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we see the herd being driven off into the night. We pan down over the fallen tree and dead cow to see Alice lying there, still out cold, but she's breathing. And then the morning, she wakes up and she pulls herself free, and she's in shock and devastation at the scene before her. The destroyed camp, dead animals all over, dead stockmen, friends, people that she's been on the road with for a year and a half. She finds some of her possessions scattered about, including a pistol. And she inspects the entire scene. She finds her father and is pretty distraught at the state of his body that's kind of been trampled and desiccated. And ransacked. Yeah. She works through the morning and the early afternoon as best she can to bury the dead in shallow graves covered in branches, tarps, loose earth. She thinks this is the first thing I need to do is to bury the dead.
And it'd be what her dad would do, get things squared away before you move on.
Yes, yeah. And then with her work done, she's just overcome with everything. She collapses down and uncovered on the camp. And she wakes up in the early afternoon with a start. Her head is throbbing, she's sweating, she's so dehydrated. The nightmare continues. She hunts around for water, doesn't find anything. She makes some shelter tries to stay out of the sun. Then she has dreams of the stampede, flashes of her father, the horror. And now the father's like appearing to her like a zombie. And she wakes up from her nightmare, the sun blazing. She takes the pistol and puts it to her head. And she hears her father's voice. And he says to her, family, prayer, work. And then she opens her eyes, the sun is still blaring. She crawls out, gasping for water.
Yeah, I like that as a counterpoint to Blake's mantra.
Cattle, horses,
that's
men.
lovely. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yep.
So she finds a knife in her possessions and she gets to the nearest steer and slices into its belly, scooping out the blood and the viscera and getting as much moisture as she can from it. And then that evening, she's made a little fire and she's cooking some hunks of the beef torn from the cattle, and she knows to stay where she is. And then we cut to Blake Rivers' gang, and they ride into a small cattle station, and their drove is secured and guarded, and Blake and his men go into the little cattle station, and he uses Nate's documents to prove to fake who he is. He says, I'm Nate. I'm the drover. I'm taking these things to Dejara.
Yeah, we're a few short. We met some bastards out on the trail. But
that's exactly what happens. They gather up some recruits saying they lost some men on the way to a rush. Mm-hmm. And then maybe we'll have Awaken Fright style nighttime, not debauchery, but they just cut loose. They've got away with it. They're at a cattle station. They drink heavily. They have fun.
Yeah.
So we're kind of on day 3 now. Alice waits for Cardi and her brother to return, the ones who have gone off. By this time, they would know that they're not coming, so they would come back to see what's going on. She waits, she prays, she stays out the sun. The cow blood is now turning. It's been a few days. The buzzards
and flies everywhere. I want the scene absolutely livid with flies, man. And it starts that buzz. Gross. I want to start to build over the time that she's there until it's that forever ticking clock in the background that you can't unhear.
It's really landing on a growing buzz. Yeah. So first light, she makes the drastic choice. She packs up her swag and as much useful stuff. Her swagger sounds like she's got like a load of
it's something from the Oscar parties or something. Elton, he hosted such a marvellous do the other night. I've got a Swarovski diamond bracelet.
A spa voucher, that will come in handy. She packs up her sleeping bag and as much useful stuff as she can as she leaves the destroyed camp behind. She's ready to walk out now to hopefully link up with her brother and Cardi, maybe as they're coming back, which is a huge gamble. She heads out. Blake and his gang happen upon an indigenous settlement, and they stop there to get supplies and mingle with the locals. And we get a montage of Alice walking through the outback now. So we have the drinking from the creeks, eating the leeches, the insects as she's moving. At nighttime, she's got a frog that she's put on a skewer and she's just cooking it over her. So after this long walk for a good few days, she meets up with Francis and Cardi finally. They see her coming over the horizon, and perhaps at first they think it's a mirage. They tend her, and they think it's a miracle that she walked it. And she asks her, why didn't you come back? And they said they would have in 3 days' time because that's the plan. It's only been 5 days. The plan is a week, and then we come back.
Yeah.
So they have a happy reunion. She tells them of the rustlers and the death of the father and everyone else, and Francis immediately wants to ride out alone and tells Cardi to take care of Alice. Alice, on the other hand, says, look, I can take care of myself. Been drinking my wee for 3 days, mate. She wants to recover her...
And then takes a slug, slams it down.
Spits in his face, lines up some shots.
What have you fucking done?
What have you ever done, eh?
He sat in next to a tent.
So she says, I need to recover my strength, and we ride out together. So... she does indeed. Maybe her wounds are tended to by Cardi. They bond a little bit and they ride out together. Act 2. This is where it gets into super bullet points. I don't have an Act 2, really. I've got an Act 3.
That's fine.
So
you got lots of bullet points, man. That's like an Act 2.
So Alice and Cardi are bonding as they're riding out. It's taking a while. Maybe they're two to a horse and Francis on his own.
Yeah.
Camping overnight. Cardi cooking. Alice says she's a terrible cook, but how does he do it? And Cardi's says, because she's never seen him with a cookbook or anything like that, how do you learn this stuff? And Cardi's very ashamed to admit that he can't read, but Alice says there's nothing to be ashamed of. On that trek, Alice begins to teach Cardi how to read. Alice now bringing her
teacher
natural teaching
skills
ability,
and-
just
yeah.
like using that as something that she can hold on to, something that she can bring a bit of humanity to all the things she's seen.
And I've got control. I can control this situation.
I can
I've got
do this,
ownership
yeah.
over the situation like I haven't had for the last 45 minutes of the movie. Yeah.
And I think we'd have Francis, although he's obviously very happy to see Alice alive and happy, he's probably a bit begrudging that she's coming along with her, doesn't think she has the skills to survive, even though she survived the war.
And he's worried. He's like, he doesn't want her to die on his watch, man. Yeah.
Yeah. They arrive at the cattle station and they prove that Blake is not Nat, he is in fact Blake Rivers. So then some people from the cattle station asked to join their gang because rustling is one of the worst things you could possibly do in those times. You have to stamp it out. But maybe they'll come across the indigenous people's settlement and it's been destroyed or it's been ransacked. And
Yeah. And we're suddenly witnessing a scene like they left at the very start of the film when they destroyed everything. Yeah.
maybe there's a lone survivor. I said like a young boy who's there, or a young girl's clinging to their parents, a boy called Cohen. And the Cohen is taken with Alice and they all go together, and the team, so kind of a wider team now, agree that Blake Rivers and his gang can only be brought to justice in one way, which is they need to be shot or hung. They can't go to prison. They won't stand trial for this. But they know there are 2, maybe 3 cattle stations that ahead that they could possibly go to on this trail. So they're going to send out some riders. Obviously, they're going to be way faster than Blake and all his 3,000 head of cattle or 1,000 head of cattle that he's got. Yeah. So they're going to try and get ahead of them to the way stations and warn them, maybe prepare, set a trap. So Cohen joins... The young boy joins the troop or the convoy, I guess, as they go out on this hunt on the trial. During camp one night, Cardi's learning to read. Alice is teaching Cardi to read, and maybe Cohen joins them, and he starts to learn to read. And then Francis is watching on, softening as he sees his sister she now has a little school. She's making the best of anything. She's bringing a bit of brightness, a bit of humanity. And then we go into don't know what happens. But Blake and the gang are at the cattle station. The cattle have been spotted, and they know that they're in town. The emissary comes back or something like that.
Or like you get your riders, you get 2 have come back from the 3 and 1 ain't come back, mate. And that in itself is your answer as to where the hell they are and where to direct yourself.
Okay, so
you get 2 guys ride in and they're like, nah, nothing, mate, nothing at all, absolutely empty. No one's seen hide nor hair and no one bad out there. And they're like, all right, well, where's Jeff?
So then they know.
And Jeff is like, well, that's where he is. That's
Murray's in the pub. That's why he hasn't come back. Where's Murray?
Just use him a noodle, mate.
Okay, so we'll have that. 2 of the emissaries will come back, and they realise they're in this specific way station, the specific cattle station. Francis gathers up a troop, leaves some people behind to tend to the horses and everything like that. They can't all ride in there. And they ride off. Obviously, after them sneaks Alice on a horse and catches up with them. Francis is a bit furious, but she wants a taste of this action.
Yeah.
So they get to the cattle station and they go in softly to scope out who Blake is and what does he look like. And they go in and then maybe they're playing cards or they're having a wake and fright style horrible drink up. And they go in and we'll have a scene where it starts out, everyone's in control, but because of the drink and the boozing, they kind of have to get involved to ingratiate themselves in, and it goes a bit wrong. Maybe some other people on Alice's crew have got a vendetta as well because of the Blake being a rustler, or maybe Blake recognises one of them, and then it all kicks off. And
we've got the knife. Let's let Blake, he's doing a bit of a bishop hand knife game, or there's something, he's doing something with a knife, or he slams it down on a table in the middle of a
that sets
argument.
Francis off because,
and then we see, and then we know, and the links, and then this is it.
Then it goes off, bam. Okay, so Blake will kill Francis after maybe squaring off with Alice. Maybe they have a tete-a-tete, maybe they're playing cards or something, and they're having a conversation, a bit like Hans Lander and Shoshana in the restaurant in Inglourious Bastards. Blake kills Francis, and Alice is probably going to get winged as well, shot in the arm perhaps, and Cardi saves her. She's furious at Cardi, but he puts her on a horse, gets the hell out of town and she wants to stay and fight. I'm still in this fight. They get back to their own little encampment. The next morning, Alice and the remaining crew, Cardi and whatnot, says, like, we're on them. We know where they are, roughly. Yeah. Maybe there's like a bit of geography that say if they get all the cattle through this ravine or something, then they've automatically got a week on us or something. They get
putting a natural landscape bottleneck.
Yeah, or there's a territory. Once they cross that border, with the documents that he's got, which are my dad's, it means that they are his or something like that. They can sell them and we need to stop them from getting there.
Yeah, we can't get word to that place. We haven't got the time. We're not going to overtake them. Okay.
The Act 3, it'll be the big final battle. The herd are going through the ravine or they're getting all rounded up and Blake and his men are desperately trying to get them through, hurry things up, maybe being a bit slipshod about things. They're not quite as calm. They're just like, we got to get going. The cows are getting more nervous because they're being hurried along, and it's maybe some of them are like rolling ankles and just being a bit more treacherous. This period of the trek would normally be done very, very slowly, maybe over a whole day, and they're going to try and do it
in hours.
In
hours. And you're saying like animals, like they're slipping into creeks and starting to low, and like, just leave the fuckers behind. Come on, they're really getting it moving.
And then on top of the hills, perhaps our gang. Alice and her crew, Cardi and whatnot, are up there and they think, right, this is it. We're just going to go down there and take them out. They charge down, cavalry charge, I guess, down the mountain. And then the cattle at the bottom have had enough and now we get a rush. Alice is up on the hill next to Cardi. She's obviously injured. Yeah. And he's providing rifle support. Trying to shoot the men, maybe clipping a few cows, just increasing the chaos.
More insane.
So Cardi's providing rifle support, and Alice, through the dust kicking up and from her elevated position, she can see that Blake is preparing to skin out and abandon his herd.
He's going to cut it, mate.
Get through that barrier to a neutral zone or whatever that border provides him with, and fuck the rest of this. Alice can't have that. Cardi looks around to see Alice mount up and charge down herself. And so he gets on his horse to try and come up to go down with her, but he's a little bit further behind. And Alice just charges her horse straight through the stampede. They're all coming at her. She just straight towards Blake. And Cardi comes down off the hill and he can't get next to her. He can't get in with her. She's just been too crazy. So he goes around the side and kind of flanks it. So he's providing support from the flank and firing as well. Like, if you can imagine, it'd be really cool. He's on a horse with like a rifle, but not aiming well, but trying to pick off men. He's providing cover as she's...
A little bit of me wants, like, he just grabs the reins in his mouth, reaches into the side saddle, Winchester out, cocks, and just like that. Yes. And he gets away with like taking a couple before the horse starts to lose it. And oh god, he's gone. He's only got a pistol left. He's dropped. He's had to grab the reins again.
Yes, that's exactly right. So he does all that. Then he's thrown from his horse after we have this really cool bit where he's providing cover. Yeah. He's thrown from his horse, scampers up to a rock to avoid the cattle. And he tries to shoot to provide more cover. Meanwhile, all her men, or their men, and Blake's and River's men are kind of getting into scraps and shootouts. People are falling left, right, and centre. And then Blake on his horse gets knocked off and he falls down as well in amongst the stampede. Alice sees this happening in the distance. So then Blake is so disorientated in the stampede. He's got zero visibility, so it's in the daytime. So imagine that we're on ground level now with...
So it's orange almost with
Blake.
dust.
So it's super orange, zero visibility. Suddenly, like, a cow go right past him. He ducks out of the way. Then another one comes. And he's firing blindly and he's ducking out the way of this guy.
And through the dust, like he's taking a few pop shots through the dust. It's almost like an Acme cloud of fighting or something like that. And then like he takes a few shots and like a cow just comes crashing through and slumps down because he's hit it in front of him and more dust comes out.
And then he sees through this dust and the smoke and the sunlight dappling through, he sees something that looks a bit like a shape of a horse or something. Could be anyone, so he just shoots at it. And of course, it's Alice's horse. The horse gets hit. Horse buckles. Alice flies through the air, crashes into Blake, and they tumble down on the ground. And then they get into a horrible, brutal fist fight on the ground as all the cows and steer are just stampeding past. And then... obviously, Alice isn't particularly good in the fist fight, and Blake Rivers is quite good in a fist fight. So he's kind of wailing on her, and maybe he's wailing, but then he gets clipped and he rolls on the side, which buys some time for Alice to get on top and get her shots in. He gets the Bowie knife out, tries to stab her, knocked out of his hand by another cow.
Can we have one of his hand get trampled? Like,
knocks
out and
that breaks his wrist.
Yeah, and you just see like the fingers all splayed and crooked, like goodness knows what.
So that evens the odds a little bit, and then Alice can get her shots in. Then one of Blake's dudes joins the fight, finds them randomly and all this. He finds them, he gets in there, he gets knocked down to the side, scrabbles on the ground, finds the Bowie knife, and is just about to either throw it to Blake or stab Alice herself, who's on top of Blake at this moment. He gets knocked over by a cow, and I definitely want a cow to come in, mad cow, just miss Alice, and I just want a hoof in her face. Do you know what I mean? It's built for it. This scene is built for a hoof in her face.
And this is
Crunch.
in a Drive style face getting demolished, hoof on a face. Yep. Yeah. Yes, please.
Crunch
Absolutely.
on this goon. And then Alice gets the knife, the Bowie knife, and jams it into Blake Rivers' neck. It's done. Stampede over. Blake is like,
stumbling
dust
a little.
settles. Maybe he's like on his feet and he stumbles backwards.
Yeah, I want him like trying
forwards.
to talk at this, but like, the fuck are you done? The fuck are you done to me? That kind of a thing as he's gouting blood out of his gob.
I think I'm a goner.
Yeah.
It's like Chopper or something.
Little early for Kung Fu, isn't it, Jimmy?
So then Blake Rivers slumps down dead, bang, and his head lolls to the side. The camera will come down to the Blake Rivers' crown and the knife sticking out from his head, and it'll just say Fair Dinkum on the side. Just as Alice walks away, gets on the horse with Cardi and joins others, and they canter off. Fair Dinkum. And then the denouement, a few years later, Cardi is sitting on the porch of a house, rocking a little crib, looking over some land. Alice comes out onto the porch, dressed very smartly, and kisses him good morning and leaves. Then we have a classroom of children all sitting there well behaved, and Alice enters, walks around the desk, and she looks out at the children and she smiles. And Cohen is on the front row, and maybe she writes on the board today's lesson: family, prayer, work. So that was my big, long pitch for Fair Dinkum.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. Throughout the pitch, I was living in a half proposition-esque kind of world that you were taking me through here, man. With the and it doesn't even need to be arch and surreal. It's just the landscape itself feels so surreal based on the experience that we have of, like, you know, the climate and the landscape here. It feels like such another world.
Yes.
And to play on that and to tweak all of that slightly, as well as having these bursts of hyperviolence, I was really getting real proposition, gritty, sweaty, scrabbly, fighting for your existence kind of a vibe, which it propels me through things like this. I love stuff like that. It's absolutely in my wheelhouse, man.
Thank you.
While my mind was racing with the proposition during it, it was also racing with just a absolute smorgasbord of Australian actors that I love and want to see in this film. So I've written a lot of names down, man.
Oh,
a lot of names.
This is good.
But, like, who are you thinking, mate?
Well, for the father, for Nat, we'll get a nice cameo from Joel Edgerton.
Ah, beautiful. Yeah, kindest eyes in cinema, I think, almost.
Yeah, he's up there, isn't he? And that's about it. Who have we got? Come on, give me your castings.
Okay, well, I was thinking for Nat, I was thinking a Hugh Jackman cameo to do his, like, beautiful beaming dad, and, like, he can have a little sing-song as we are first introduced to him, something like that, man. I think he'd be well up for doing that, and he can go home and visit some relatives while he's shooting, man. It's going to cost us a bit less as well. As well as the proposition, this made me think of a Australian movie called Mystery Road. Then that was followed up by a sequel called Goldstone, which is all about an Indigenous Australian detective called Jay Swan, who gets, like, wrapped up in this town's absolute corruption. And in it, I believe Hugo Weaving plays one of the villains in it, and he is absolutely fantastic. I mean, we know he's good at villains, but, like, we're talking a more scuzzy, handlebar moustache wearing actual real life villain as opposed to the wonderful Agent Smith smelling sweat off a dude's head kind of a thing. You know, it's a bit less full on than that. So he immediately came in when I was thinking about Blake. And then we'll get to obviously Ben Mendelsohn is never far from the conversation when we're talking about this.
Nor should he be.
And he could do either. He could do Nat. He could even come in for Cardi or Francis potentially, depending on how old the brothers are. I would like to see him.
Or just someone at the cattle station. Maybe we could have scenes where they meet a cattle station guy who's almost like a rustler himself. He doesn't really care. He's doing shady deals anyway. You know, maybe he's
done them with
station.
Them before. In fact, he knows Blake. Yeah. But he's keeping everything close to the chest because he can see how flipping angry Francis and co are about the whole situation.
Just a nice scenery chewy cameo from Mendelsohn would be great.
And that's the beauty of a movie like this, where we're cutting across the landscape, this weird landscape that allows us, and I find that in a lot of the early Australian movies, or whatever Australian movies in general, there are the opportunities to bump into these strange characters along the journey. It's almost this fairy tale kind of logic that sits upon stuff like The Last Wave and Wake in Fright and Picnic at Hanning Rock or whatever even.
Who have you got for Alice? I put her as 19, but you can definitely change that up. Doesn't matter.
Okay, because I was desperate. Again, we know how terrible old Father Luke is at recognising anyone below 25. What was that? She does what now? An actor, you say? So I haven't got anyone, I must admit, man. That was this terrible of me just to come to this party empty-handed, man. But I was Googling through a few potential names. I'm not going to mention Samara Weaving again, that kind of jazz.
That's the only one I've got. It's Samara Weaving's written her.
Yeah, that's it. So I'll need more research to truly come up with someone other than that. So
let's both go for that. Should be fantastic. I can imagine her. She obviously throws herself into every role. She's great actor. I can imagine her just doing that montage where she's eating the crickets, she's eating the leeches, she's scooping muddy, sludgy water and really throwing herself into it. 100%.
Okay, well, as I believe Samara Weaving, we've mentioned you several times because of how absolutely excellent you are as an actor. This is the time where we say we are not going to consider anyone else. This role is for you.
Yeah.
All right.
We've written this for you.
Absolutely about time we did that, to be fair. Okay, so have you got any directors in mind for this, Graham, man?
It's got a lot of scope, I guess. There's big vistas and these... You'd be good at that.
When it started, I was Jane Campion, potentially, because of the big vistas and the story and power of the dog kind of a thing. Then when Bull started killing people in my head, which happened quite a lot, there were lots of hoofs, and as I said, then I went more like Greg McKean, who did Wolf Creek, if you want the tension, man,
he's very good at that.
I think he would bring all of the violence that we need when the violence occurs, as well as that through line of tension, and it would be interesting to see if he what else he could bring, because that's all I remember from Wolf Creek is being terrified and tense, quite frankly.
George Miller, if we're going Australian directors, George Miller would be pretty good. He might bring a big romantic sweep to it as well.
Yeah. And imagine the scenes when all of the clouds of red dust and the sunlight coming through clouds. He's absolutely built for something like that, without a doubt.
Well, I think that's about it for Fair Dinkum.
Dude, thank you so much, man. That was excellent.
You are welcome.
My mind cinema is scorched and warm right now. I'm feeling very sun-bleached after that experience, man. And not a little trampled as well, I must admit, man. But all fingers are intact.
Good. And skull intact, face intact.
Yeah. Unlike certain members of the unfortunate Blake gang.
Oh, yes. Right. So then, I think that just leads us on to you pitching myself and all of us in the Mind Cinema.
Well, Graham, first off, I've got a confession to make.
You changed the name?
Yeah. I ditched it, immediately. The time's come for me to colon you, man.
Oh!
I'm whipping out the colon.
Oh, the colon is coming out.
That's it. It's been 11 episodes in the making, guys. But here we go. I'm going to colonate this horse.
Now, does the colon come before or after Stiletto? This is interesting.
It comes after Stiletto.
Okay.
So... I am going to pitch for all of your listening pleasure and yours as well, Graham, my friend, Stiletto, a Billy Joel fable.
we going biopic territory?
No.
No, okay.
No, I'm taking some extensive liberties with the life and career of Mr. Joel, as the ensuing few moments will probably show to you all.
Okay.
We're going to open up on a close-up of fingers hovering over ivory. Smoke in the room. The crowd, you can hear murmuring with excitement in the background. We pan out as the fingers hit a very familiar tune. And I've just written doo-doo-la, doo-doo bop, doo-doo-doo, diddle-a-diddle-a-diddle-a, doo-doo-doo, dee-dee-dee, which translates as the opening notes to Piano Man, as we all know and love, of course. A bouffant hairdo.
Gotcha.
Bops and sways as the band kicks in, and we pan around Carnegie Hall. It's the 1970s and Billy Joel's star is on the rise, man. We start with this powerful rendition of Piano Man. The crowd goes wild. The band are on it. Billy's fingers are leaping all over the place. It's absolutely incredible. So we meet Billy at his peak, and we got the Piano Man intro. Carnegie Hall. He's going from strength to strength, topping charts and breaking hearts, man. He's got the attention of the Western world, but he's suffering from burnout. He's mistrustful of the record companies. He's still kind of smarting after the Cold Spring Harbor mess up that happened at the start of his career when they mastered the entire album about half speed too quick, so he sounded a little bit like a chipmunk. He doesn't know how to follow up The Stranger, like his biggest album to date, which came out in 1977. And he goes off stage, and the second he does, we just see him deflate. He gets a call from his management. "Oh, that was dynamite, kid. We can't wait to hear what's next." And he's like, "Next? I've given you everything. I've given you my all. I haven't got a next. I'm burnt out, man." And we just see him sat backstage in the green room, leafing through pathetically through his sort of musical notations that he keeps in this leather satchel. Now, this universe version of Billy Joel is a real earnest, self-obsessed and completely clueless dude. And a mix between that and like Danny McBride from Eastbound and Down, with that like massive confidence despite not really knowing what's going on. Okay, so that's kind of where we're pitching Lovely Billy. So keep all of this in mind as I describe the next scene, where backstage he is approached by the NSA to go on tour.
Well, the NSA, the National Security Agency, come back and they say, "Your group is going to be the perfect place for us to hide an operative." And Billy's like, "Oh, you got me a new roadie." And he thinks the company he's talking about is like the record company Columbia that he's signed to, man. And Billy's like starting to get a bit of a fire in his tummy, thinking like, "You're sending me around the world. You think I'm good? I'm worth something. I'm not burnt out. This is amazing. But am I? Can I even do it?" And he's like, and the NSA guy like is just... A roadie. I like that, Billy. A roadie. Yeah. You're a goddamn natural, kid. A real slick Rick. Sure, we got you a roadie, and he's going to pick up a package for us. Sound equipment, wink, wink. And Billy's convinced that this is now a tour deal. NSA agent's terrible.
Oh, yeah, he's absolutely...
wink, wink.
Yeah, nudge, nudge. Here's the secrets. And he's like, "Wow, this is amazing. My tables are turned. I came off stage feeling unfulfilled. Now I'm being sent on this world tour. I'm getting this cool new roadie." He's like, "Yeah, just set it up. You guys are pros. I love it, baby." And then the NSA guy says, "Yeah, we're thinking Frankfurt, Billy. But before that, you're going to stop by Berlin. Your roadie, Sweets Coolidge, has got some primo German sound equipment to pick up, if you get me. He's a real good guy. He knows the language. It's all on the company." And so, bang, we play the travelling prayer. We get a montage of Billy packing and flying out with his band, and we see some of the little rehearsals to prep, and Sweets is there with him, completely flanking him, this massive, bulky, bearded, hairy dude.
All this montage is shot on like 8mm camcorder footage.
Yes, sun bleach, sort of LA.
Something's through the aeroplane.
Yeah, absolutely bad. And they are having a right old time. Bang! They're in Berlin. Billy receives a formal invitation to the ambassador's ball. And at this ball, he started to slump again. He started to doubt himself again. He's not really sure. He's like, I've got to play Frankfurt. Has anyone in Frankfurt even heard of me? I'm not worth this. I can't tour, man. He started to slump again. And he meets a guy called Felix Trinkenschuh. And he introduces himself as an absolute Billy superfan, and he's also apparently the cultural attaché for Berlin. And the minute he sees Billy, he is like all beams, and he comes up to him like this beautiful, bubbling, effervescent kid, man. He's like, "Oh, William the American. Sing us a song from your homeland, William. Let us boogie, no?" And William's like, Billy's like, yeah, I guess there is a ground over there. It's the Ambassador's Hall, and I really don't want to. And he does this sort of like the false Ron Burgundy false protest. And before like Felix has even finished asking Billy, he's cracked his fingers, he's slammed the little piano up, and he smashes out the Ballad of Billy the Kid. And he's rocking it so hard, man, that Felix, like, he stood there and he's just bouncing next to him, and he can't hold himself back. He sits down next to Billy and he starts hammering away on the keys as well, man. And this scene, we're going to see like two grown men just fall completely in love with each other. And Billy is working off of him. Felix is he's feeding Billy. And like just the adoration and the talent that he's keeping him on his toes, man. He's making him play better than he's ever played before. And they fall in love over the course of this song. And the whole place erupts and the men just slump against each other, like laughing, sweating, breathless, and sat at the piano next to each other. And Felix is just like, he's blown away. He's even like got the balls to stand up and do that. He's even more blown away Billy let him, and that they finished this song together so marvellously. And he just whacks his arm around him and he's like, the feeling, it was quite fine, William, my friend, quite fine. And Felix says, like, look, William, you must join me on a night in the town. Let me show you Berlin. Let me show you all the sights that we have. Come on, let's get the hell out of here, man. And Billy's like, all right, well, let's ditch this Ambassador's Ball, man. I want to go out with a wildcat like Felix, man. I'm digging this guy's groove. Let's get on this, man. And then Felix says, look, well, William, and he opens up a bit to William. He feels very wonderfully naked in front of him and vulnerable, but in a really healthy, he feels so free to talk about anything he wants to with this dude who's bopped out of nowhere into his life, man. And Felix says, look, well, Billy, if you're worried and you really want to prove yourself, I will take you to SO36. It's one of the most happening music venues in Berlin. If the crowd love you there, William, they will love you everywhere. And so, bang, we're kicking off our adventures in babysitting style caper throughout the streets of Berlin with Felix and Billy. So they've slipped. Oh, Sweets. Sweets is back at the Ambassadors. The band's back at the Ambassadors. They ain't got a clue what's going on. Billy and Felix out into the night, man. And they get lost as they're walking through. We get to see a real nice sort of shots of 70s Berlin, and it's night time. It's getting that sexy, dangerous, interesting parts of Berlin that Felix knows all about. And they're talking about music, and they are just bonding, kind of like before sunrise or something like that almost. These guys are falling for each other, man. So Felix eventually leads them into a posh underground jazz club. And in the background, in the shadows, there's a deal taking place. And that's between Sweets Coolidge, looking completely out of place with his massive beard and hair forced into a suit jacket, like to meet the club's dress code or whatever. And he's there to meet the British counterpart, who is going to be giving this package that Sweets is going to go and get. And we have this tense sort of... the scene in Grosse Pointe Blank between Dan Aykroyd and John Cusack are in the diner. So they're in the middle of all of this, man. And he's like, have you got the package? And he's like, yes, of course, dear. Well, you followed. If this gets in the wrong hands, I should have burned the damn things myself. Special relationship, my arse. We're last at the teat when you Yanks are concerned. He's like, yeah, all right, cut through the shit, Brit, man. Like, give me the package. You got the package or not? We've made this. Isn't our argument to have, man. And the guns come out underneath the table. Things really ramping up now. And the British guy clocks a few shady people lurking in the background of the club who are clearly trying to make their way over to him. And he's like, who are your friends? The tension ramps up and up. And then Billy leaps into frame. Sweets, you got taste, my man. And he slaps him on the back. The silenced pistol goes off under the table, but no one noticed because the band's playing. Nearly hits the Brit, who jumps massively and tips over drinks all over the table. And Billy gives him an odd look and goes, you got some weird pals, Sweets. And then he's getting called back by Felix. He's like, William, I have your drinks. He goes back to the table and Felix goes like, please, William, now, we have talked so much about music and I had the pleasure of playing with you. May you please play some for me? And so Billy takes to the stage again at this jazz bar. And reluctantly, my ass, but up he gets, man. And we get Angry Young Man, Prelude, Angry Young Man he plays with. Now, while this is happening, the standoff is still occurring in the background. It's getting even more tense. People are moving in, but people are also moving up and getting on the dance floor, completely covering up any of the dodgy dealings that are happening. Sweets just reaches out, grabs the package from the British spy, and they start to have this rolling fight that they take through backstage into the kitchen. They're hitting each other with pans, all of this kind of thing. He's desperately trying to get whatever the package is off the British spy, and they're going for it. And they eventually sort of end up backstage. And Sweets is like wrestling for his life. He lands smack bang out of the wings, lands on stage and starts to like crawl under the piano. And Billy is mid-song, he is playing his absolute arse off, and he looks down at like Sweets' head appearing from underneath the piano. And he's just like, Sweets, you're a goddamn dynamite, man. You are never off the clock. Tune it up, baby. And he sort of like reaches down and like gives him a high five, and then he's completely oblivious, gets back, and like Sweets gets pulled straight back under the piano by the Brit. But not before he does. He manages to reach out and he puts the package into the satchel that holds all of Billy's music, man, unbeknownst to anyone. So the place is like absolutely bumping. It's bumping too much for either Felix or Billy to handle at this point, man. People are getting up on the stage, they're getting up on the tables. Billy started something, bang, they're going to split. The place is too hot, man. So now we're going to continue, as I said, this adventure in babysitting. We're thinking like a bit of After Hours, the Scorsese movie with Griffin Dunn. Yeah, that kind of like caper around the town, man.
What's the one with Emilio Estevez? The one
night.
Judgment Night. Judgment Night.
Oh my God. Oh, don't, man. Okay, we'll be screening a trilogy of like Lost in the City films for you after this, guys. I promise. Right. So the two men are going to remain utterly clueless, as I'm sure we're all aware by now of the situation that's happened. And as they're sort of like chasing around town, we're going to get a bit of Sweets reporting back to Johnny, the NSA guy, and he's like, you should have seen how he handled himself in the club, boss. Like, he didn't even break sweat. It was incredible. The guy's like, he's an absolute natural, man. He's a stone cold badass. And it looks like he's working with a German or something. He's like playing both sides. I don't even know what this kid's up to, man, but it's almost out of my league. So Billy starts to become like convinced as we get a series of people who start to try and get his satchel. He starts to get convinced that the agents that are trying to get his satchel are just from like Arista Records, like one of the record companies out to steal his notes and give them to that doe-eyed son of a bitch, Barry Manilow or something like that. He has no idea what's happening, man.
Can we have like a few little scenes of like they're on the metro and someone like tries to like grab his bag?
Yes.
They start out. Maybe we'd have a little montage where these like bag snatchers start out quite elaborate, but they're getting so desperate that they get reduced down and down and down to like they dress someone up like a homeless person to sort of nick it off the subway.
And there's like a guy coming down like Spider-Man on a nylon wire, trying to like reach it from next to them on a park bench as they're talking wax lyrical about music and things like that. All right, well, that will come into play later when the doo-wop happens. Okay. This is fantastic. We keep cutting from the NSA, the German secret police, trying to work out what the fuck's going on. They discover, actually, that Felix is from the secret police from the East. He's a bean pusher or something. And they suspect that he might be working with the Americans, because why is he hanging out with this Billy guy and he hasn't got the package yet if he's got an opportunity? What the hell's going on? Is he a double agent? How else could these guys have outsmarted some of the best agents in the country, like so far tonight, man? And they got possession of the cash, they got the package, which is like a microfilm holding all of the dirty secrets on the most powerful people in the world or something like that. There we go, we've got a MacGuffin kind of a thing. And they end up in a bar and they bump into Lou Reed, Bowie and Iggy Pop.
Oh, now we get some casting going.
Now, Lou Reed, Bowie and Iggy Pop are well clued up on all of the weirdness that's happening around Berlin, man. All of this secret spy shit.
So
and they're like, look, we're going to split this town, Billy, and you should too. This is crazy off-the-books spook shit happening at the minute. And Billy, like, frowns and goes like, oh, it's so fucking old. How could it not be haunted, man? Crazy German ghosts, man. It's wild. And he peers into the dark corners of the bar and, like, he just starts sort of, like, muttering weird shit. All right, man. Sons of bitches are after my music, man. And he hugs his satchel tight and then excuses himself and he takes himself off to the bog. And we see him coming out of the bathroom stall and he's adjusting himself and the satchel and there's a man waiting for him. Bang, toilet fight. Because this guy just like starts talking in whatever language from whatever spy agency he works with. He just starts demanding stuff. And Billy's like, you ain't having my fucking music, man. And our Billy from the Bronx, man, he comes out swinging. He ain't going to let anyone near that shit, man. He completely...
You jabroni.
You goddamn moke. He absolutely lays him aside, man. Lays him to waste. Comes out like just like, and he goes back up to the bar and he's like, you got to get a better class of fan, Mr. Bowie. Those cats are wild. And like Bowie's like, you seem to take care of them okay. Very spunky. And he's like... And Billy's like, I'm from the Bronx.
You seem to have taken care of them in your own special way.
The dexterity you showed with your fingers clearly belies your talents as an athlete, William. And he's just like, yeah, well, I'm from the Bronx, man. What do you expect? He duffs up, takes the collars up, and he's like, come on, man. We got to get the hell out of here, man. Like, come on, Felix, let's blow this joint. This place is weird. Just give me the heebie-jeebies, man. And we have Sweets Coolidge is now following in the wake of all of this, scrabbling to find what the hell's going on with the package he stuffed in Billy's satchel. And he finds the unconscious agent in the toilet, and he's back on the blower to Johnny, going like, honestly, this kid, he's a killer, man. He's an absolute killer. I don't understand how he's doing this.
This guy's a weapon.
Yeah, like, honestly, like, it's not just the piano he can play fast, man. This guy, he's obviously trained. He's trained for, I don't know how he's doing it, man. He's absolutely amazing. So Felix and Billy, they go back off, and they have a couple of beers together. Billy's still like dusting himself off, adjusting himself after the Lou fight, and says it's completely wild. And they go to another place, and like you see, I think we'll see like Felix will show a badge, he'll flash something to like get entry into this place. And Billy's like, he sits them down, they're having a real heart-to-heart. They got to that kind of like, I love you, man, sort of like phase of the night that we all get to, man. And he's like, look, Felix, this is absolutely amazing. You're making my heart burn. And Felix is like, he's just like, it's crazy. And Felix is like, oh, you want to know crazy, Mr. William? Well, he goes on and he says, like, Billy, in all night in your music, you've given me honesty. And I feel that it's my duty to give you some honesty back. And he says, I have been in the midst of this crazy, this iron bedsheet that has been up. I have been in the middle of this. This is the life I have led. And it started off hard for me, but in the midst of bureaucracy and confusion and red tape, I can use things to my advantage. And he set up a secret organization, or he set up an initiative within the West called Stiletto, which is the Specialist Talent Intelligent Liaisons and Engagement for the Termination of Tyrannical Oppressors. And he says, William, like, I didn't set this up to find any tyrants. I set it up because I get free tickets to rock and roll, man. Like so many departments, and they're all so afraid of the West. I have no taste for warfare, hot or cold. This way, a little smoke and mirrors, and I get to see so much music. I have seen the Genesis, although that Phil Collins, not my friend. And he's been through this litany of bands under the guise of this Stiletto that he managed to set up in the darkness of the confusion of what was happening on both sides of the Iron Curtain, to be fair. They finally make it after this heart-to-heart, which has sort of forged their bond even stronger, man, to SO36. And Felix says, Billy, this is your time. I will stand back now, and I will say no more. I will just let you do what you do. And Billy gets up on stage, and there's like, it was quite a punky new wave kind of a gig, man. He's got a lot of work to even begin to impress these guys with the piano, the beaten up old little piano that's up there, man. But he cracks his fingers, and he gives up one of the finest renditions of Scenes from an Italian Restaurant that there ever has been, his absolute opus, this 10-minute beautiful journey through the suburbs, man. And he sings and plays every note better than he has ever played it before, man. And so during this is where we're going to get, the agents have come in, and we're going to get a Temple of Doom, like the intro to Temple of Doom, where you had the musical number and people fighting for a package. We're going to have that in this. Anything goes. So we're going to have that. We've got like Swan comes back in, and he is like trying to fight off agents that are trying to make their way up to the stage to get Billy. Billy is just busy rocking out, man. He hasn't got a clue what's going on.
Got no clue, really.
No, he thinks like the record guys are back, man. He spots a couple of dudes he's seen before. He's playing away, and he sort of like goes to the other stage, kicks one right in the face as he's doing it, man. He starts rocking out hard and lifts the lid of the piano up. Just as he does, a knife into the back of it, and it's all completely unbeknownst to him, man. He's like managing to fend off all of these dudes. So like Sweets gets involved. He's trying to fend people off as best he can. The place turns into an absolute riot, man. People are grooving, screaming. Agents are getting trampled. They're getting like picked up and swung about by dancers as they're trying to take shots at him on the dance floor. Billy finishes up sweating, beaming, and stands like arms open in front of the absolute squealing crowd, man. And then back to Felix. He's got to get him backstage. He needs to thank him. He says, I felt so revitalized in all of my days, man. And so we're going to bring it down. We're going to calm down. They're going to have a nice walk throughout the very quiet. Now we're looking like 3 a.m. in Berlin, man. And they walk past a bunch of dudes singing doo-wop round a lit barrel. And Billy, at this point, can't help but he starts to sing For the Longest Time, which is this beautiful song about a man who's been sort of woken up and revitalised by a new love. And everyone joins in, even Felix, and they end in this beautiful, massive crescendo. And just as they do, an agent sort of like swipes from out of the bushes at Billy's satchel, goes headfirst into the bin, sets on fire, and runs off screaming down the road. But he does manage to grab he's got the satchel in his hand, man, and the guy's hightailing it out there, smouldering and screaming, but running with the satchel at this point, man. Yeah. And like Billy just shouts after him.
He's holding it at arm's length because he's on fire.
Yeah, he doesn't
right?
want it to burn. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it's the only thing not on fire is his arm and like that red leather of his jacket as he's running up the road. Felix and Billy dust themselves off now, and they're walking arm in arm back to Felix's hotel. They're kind of spent. They've had their night. Billy's done what he needed to do. It's been absolutely incredible, man. And during this time, we see Sweet calling into Johnny. He's like, well, I thought the kid was great, but he's blown it, man. They got away with the package. We've got to get Billy out of here, though. Like, we can't... It was fine having him running around doing this when he had the package, he was useful. Now we're just going to kill one of the most beautiful talents that this country has produced, sir. And I ain't willing to do that. So we've got to pull him out, man. And so Billy and Felix go back to the hotel room, and this is where Swan jumps in and like SWAT team rescues Billy from the situation because he still doesn't trust Felix one jot, man. And he's dragging Billy out of the hotel room, and Billy is absolutely enraged. He's screaming. He's like, what the? You get your hands off me. What's going on, man? And he's pulled out. He's extracted. He's gone. Mm-hmm. And Billy is taken back. He's briefed by Johnny that Felix was a member of Stiletto, which was like this apparently an initiative set up by like the German secret police to like catch bloody Westerners, man, and like link yourself to them and start to corrupt. And I'm so sorry. And Billy he's heartbroken. He's like, what? So it wasn't. He didn't love my songs, man. And Johnny says, I'm sorry, Billy. Communism is all that Weasley bastard loved. It was his first known he loved. He didn't love your music, man. He loves communism. And Billy's hungover. He's heartbroken. He feels absolutely betrayed, man. He was being used. He was like, Billy, he wanted you for the microfilm. He knew that we were coming in. Somehow there was a leak. That's the only reason that guy attached to you, like, flies on shit. Yeah, nothing to do with love. He doesn't think you're that great. And like all of the confidence starts to melt away.
I can't believe that's true.
From poor Billy.
Oh, man.
And then we will also cut back and we'll see Felix like dusting himself off from the SWAT-style rescue, and the bang, that's when the German secret police come in, guns in the face. Felix is taken away, man, because they think Felix was working with Billy and allowed him to escape in the microfilm. So we'll get a nice... this is where Until the Night kicks in, which is this beautiful, tormented love song between two lovers who don't get to see each other as much as they should, man. And it's like this, it's big and emotional, and that's how Billy's feeling. He's hungover, betrayed, but there's still some of that validation that he got. And we see him go to Frankfurt, and we see him getting ready for the gig. And he's still in the clothes he wore that night because they've had 2 hours to get to Frankfurt after all of the finagling and messing around, man. And he's dusting off his suit and he's pulling his lapels, and then he's like, and he opens up his shirt and he reaches in to his stash of music that he put into his jacket to keep it safe from the record company when he went to the bog before he got in a fight with the agent.
Yes, yeah.
And he pulls it out, and out drops this like spool of like film stuff, man. And he's just like, he sort of like holds it up to the light, and he's like, I don't know what the fuck this is. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it in the green room until I get back, man. Goes out, he absolutely nails Frankfurt, man. It's absolutely electric. He's never played anything like it. And at the end of the gig, he goes out and he says to Sweets, he's like, Sweets, man, like this must have slipped in my jacket when you were bear hugging me at the hotel, you big fucking lug. Like, what, are you a damn photographer or something? Like, as well as a goddamn roadie? You guys, you run a tight ship, man. And he hands it back, and like, Sweets is just there like, what? How did you...
How has this landed in my pocket?
Okay, fine. And Johnny, man, when Johnny hears about it, the NSA agent, he's absolutely agape. And he shakes Billy by the hand at the airport as Billy's heading back to New York. And he says, like, Mr. Joel, I owe you one. We, the country, the world owes you one, man. And like Billy just goes, I know it, Johnny, and I'll pay him back one song at a time. It's what I do. And then he's off. He's on the plane, man. And so because of the rage that Billy has still got and that fire that he's had lit him, he releases 52nd Street, and it's his like most successful album to date, man. And on it is the song Stiletto, a song that he wrote about the betrayal that he felt at the hands of Felix, man. And it's sort of like a song about an awful relationship between a man and a woman, completely transposed. That's just what he felt from Felix, man. It goes top Billboard. It makes its way over to East Germany. And Johnny swings by and he's like, Billy, thank you again for your service, man. You stopped a complete catastrophe. Oh, and you know that the German dude who tried to burn us, man? He's dead. He's devastated still because there's still so much love that he had from those 7 hours, man. So he writes "Good Night, My Darling," and we see him performing this beautiful song saying goodbye to someone. And Billy, he releases the Nylon Curtain. We see him enter a much more cynical phase of his career. He's starting to question lots of things. He's starting to get slightly political. He's got Good Night Saigon on there. It's sort of like his concept album. And then the years tick by. Billy starts to release, less and less. And he sat there and will have like a postcard from Moscow come at him through his PA or whatever. And it's a coded message from Felix. It's not very well coded, but it's a coded message from Felix. William, my friend, the night we spent together all those years ago is the only thing that keeps my heart going in the unfortunate circumstances I currently find myself. I miss you, my friend, and I miss what we had together. And as I reach the end of my life, or whatever, he's hinting that something terrible was about to happen. I must forever bid you adieu from these cold shores of Moscow. So Billy thinks, well, Johnny, you said you owed me one, man. It's time you prove that, dude. And he goes and he sets up, which actually happened in real life. In 1989, Billy Joel went to Moscow and he put on his concert with a K, where he was one of like the few artists who went over there and performed. And he said, this is not about politics. I want to go over there and just spread music and spread what I do and try and just connect with some people via that way. So in our alternate reality, all of this is a guise so they can go over there. And our end segment is them. We see Sweets back in his big hair and his big beard wig, going over there with Billy, and we see Sweets breaking sweet Felix out of his prison as Billy is absolutely rocking the entire stadium to "We Didn't Start the Fire." And Billy gets off stage and he's not interested in hearing anyone say how great he was or anything like that. He goes straight up to Johnny. He's like, did you get Felix? Did you get Felix? And they point him to one of his piano cases. And Billy cracks the lid, he looks in, and up, beaming at him from his hiding place in the piano case is Felix. And he just extends a hand out, and they grab it and shake it almost Predator style, man. You can tell the love and happiness in that shake. And then on the plane they go.
Oh, my God.
They smuggle him out on the tour buses and with all of the accoutrements that you get with an absolute massive, stonking, huge world tour like that. And out on the aeroplane, they take off of the tarmac. Out from the back of the plane walks up Felix. They embrace, and then River of Night plays, and then credits.
Fucking hell. That was the best one you've done. By fucking far. Right, okay, so some questions.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sure there's plenty.
So what we have here is not only a fictional account of Billy Joel and a relationship with someone very important in his life played through his songs. We also get a knockabout Cold War spy thriller plus a wild hangover-style night on the town plus a Shawshank Redemption style reunion thing at the end. All wrapped up in your knowledge of Billy Joel songs.
Yep, that's what we got, man. We got a slice of Billy there for you guys.
Holy shit. How the hell did you come up with this idea? Now it's going to be an interview section now because I've got to get into this. How did you come up with it?
You said Stiletto. The second you said Stiletto, it's Billy Joel because of his song Stiletto, which is one of my favourite songs of his. It's absolutely brilliant, man. And then I was like, right, well, we're going to do a Damien Chazelle style night in the life of, a bit like Steve Jobs or something like that. We'll do a Damien Chazelle style sort of like night in the life of Billy to tell you a big story about Billy and all of his life and how it all happened and blah, blah, blah. But then there was a bit of me that was like, Stiletto does feel like it should be acronymized, if that's a word.
Okay, yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? And then I wrote whatever the flip that I can't remember now, man. I can't,
and then you worked on it from there.
And then
you
from
threaded
that,
in the songs.
Yeah, and then it was like, right, well, we need some like badass stonking musical numbers. He's got plenty of them, so I can hit the big notes with, you know, scenes from Italian Restaurant, Ballad of Billy the Kid. And then we've got, Billy's done so many beautiful songs, man, that it's like, yeah, I can thread them in there. He's got the stuff for the happy, for the sad, for the whatever the heck, man.
This pitch is exactly why we started this all those years ago. This Racehorse movies idea. It's so good. It's exactly why we started it. It's weird, stupid, super fucking out there and funny and crazy enough that it might just work. Do you know what I mean? It's really obscure, but fantastic. You pulled it together in such a beautiful way.
I appreciate that very much, man. That's very kind of you, dude. I could not resist because there was a massive part of me was saying, Luke, mate, how many people are you going to alienate? One, by just having a film about Billy Joel or whatever. No offense, this is my tribute to Billy, who I love with all of my heart.
I think there's going to be like Loving Jukebox. There's going to be a Stiletto Billy Joel playlist made.
You may guess correctly. You might be getting two playlists
with some other songs. With some other songs threaded in that might be around in the nightclubs.
We've mentioned some Bowie, we've mentioned Reed, exactly.
This film deserves a soundtrack and maybe even a custom thumbnail and a poster and a film. All of it. All right. While I need to get into this, we've got to dig down and cast this film and bring it to life. I've got some notes, not too many, but I got some of them I'm happy with. But who have you got? Where are we going?
That's a good question. Like, I found it. I'll be straight up at the very start. I was like, I think I'm just going to have to open casting call for a young Billy. I don't know who to get. But then
I got 6 for young Billy.
Oh, well, beautiful. That's what I need, man. Because I had Oliver Cooper, he played Son of Sam in Manhunter, which is not a very good comparison because he's very made up. But he's also in Red Oaks, a TV show that I heartily recommend. And he is extremely sweet and big-eyed and vulnerable. He's got a bit of a resemblance to Billy Joel as well. I think he could work. I don't know anything about him musically or anything like that. I prefer someone who could sing and play at the same time as well, but I'm asking for a lot there.
I think that's going to be an open casting then if you want them to not
I know, and that,
mime and... Okay, sure.
For Johnny, the NSA, I was going Paul Reiser or Matt Damon. For Sweets Coolidge, I was thinking John Cusack. We did mention him in. I could imagine him all bearded and scuzzed up, man. And in a perfect world, it would have been Philip Seymour Hoffman as well. Would be my absolute dream for Sweets because it didn't. I thought about him as I was doing it. I got very sad, obviously, but also happy thinking about how marvelous he was and how much I'd like him in that, man. Or a Jesse Plemons, as I can't get a Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes, we'll put Plemons in.
Yeah, and that was it. For Felix, I've got Daniel Bruhl. Because he's got a beautiful energy and innocence about him as well, and a really good look for the 70s. Matthias Schoenhartz maybe as well. I know he's not German, but I think he could do that. Again, he's got that look about him.
I'm pretty sure I've got Felix.
Okay, right. I think that is my casting, man. It was very sparse on the cast, man. So let's.
Okay, so do you want to start with my Billy Joel?
I really do, because it was stumping the heck out of me.
I mean, it is tricky. Because we want to go young. So as soon as you said Billy Joel, obviously the first person I wrote down was Mark Ruffalo. Probably a bit too old.
Sadly, yes.
Sadly, probably a bit too old for 70. How old was he in the 70s?
He was 33, I think he was, man, when he was...
Okay. Mark Ruffalo, probably too old.
Yes.
Then immediately you said Danny Bride, just as I was writing Danny Bride. I think he would be really good. That manic energy, because during those knockabout scenes... and everything's going off like the gunfight and the handover and it's underneath the piano. For directors, I then wrote David Gordon Green.
Oh, okay.
For like Pineapple Express style madness, and then Danny McBride. I had Miles Teller for the pianoing, but I'm not sure if he had the wide-eyed.
He's a bit too intense.
Jubilation, a bit too intense.
Yeah.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt would be nice and sweet.
Yes, I could see, and I think he's musical, or he's definitely good at dancing and singing anyway.
Yeah. But the one I have highlighted, and he's way too old by double the age, So maybe if we set this, if we film this in the 80s, maybe.
Okay.
Ralph Macchio.
Oh, I'm so sad. He's double the age. Oh, mate, right. We have to do we have to now invent a time machine. I'm afraid, Graham. There is no other option.
How sweet and lovely would he be as a young Billy Joel?
He'd be perfect. He would be so good at that clueless, happy,
just bouncing through everything.
Yes.
So nice and lovely.
Mate. That is an absolutely incredible shout, yeah.
Okay, for my Felix, I've got two. And the first one, I think, for me is perfect. The second one, it's also kind of perfect, but the first one is German. So
right, okay.
For the first one, I had, no, apologies if I mispronounce your surname. I had Matthias Schweighofer, who was the safecracker in Army of the Dead and also in Army of Thieves. He's got a real friendly...
lovely eyes. He's got a really nice smile, man. A very earnest smile.
He's so live wire and full of energy. And
I can see him 70s up as well, absolutely.
My other one is Anthony Harrigan, who played NoHo Hank in Barry, who would be, if you haven't seen Barry, also stop this podcast and go and watch the HBO.
That means I'm going to have to stop
Barry.
the podcast. Oh, no.
Have you not seen Barry?
I haven't seen Barry yet. I know, I'm so sorry. Oh,
my
God.
Days. Anthony Harrigan is an incredible, dramatic and incredibly funny actor. And NoHo Hank really reminded me of Felix in that sweet, warm, open, genuinely falling in love, and this is the best moment to ever happen. But then, at the flick of a switch, probably could just shoot someone in the head. Yeah. And Anthony Harrigan plays NoHo Hank in Barry. Pitch perfect. It's incredible.
Right. Well, I think we might go for Schweighofer. I love his face. He genuinely he looks like a Felix. Yep.
I honestly think that role is made for him.
I guess director ideas. I only had two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think this came when I started bringing like Iggy Pop and stuff into it. I was like, Barry Sonnenfeld, because he can do the two guys working together incredibly well. He can do the romp, he can do the period, and he can do really big effervescent action scenes as well. I think he'd be able to handle the ballet of it all. Or if we wanted to go less shiny and a bit more gritty, probably save a bit of cash as well, although I'm not sure what Sonnenfeld costs nowadays. Steven Soderbergh, man.
Soderbergh would be fun, yeah. He would be knockabout, he would be good. I had, obviously, Damien Chazelle when it's about the music.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Obviously, I had Tarantino because of the alt history kind of pop culture thing. David Gordon Green would be good.
I like David Gordon Green a lot, yeah.
But I thought this is pretty well tailored to someone like Doug Liman. So I was thinking about the energy of American Made.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. For the ending, I did, while you were watching it, I was totally in the mind cinema. And when it came to the end, I just said in my mind, end now. And it was the bit where the piano opens and the hand comes out. And he just shakes his hand.
Yep.
And in my mind, the film, there's a freeze frame.
Oh.
But it's a freeze frame. But the audio's still going of crowds cheering, and it's all amazing. I don't think we need the aeroplane bit.
No, absolutely, you're quite right. And dude, ending on a freeze frame, right? So it's this piano box is in the wings, and I want the shot from in the wings. And Billy's come off stage now, and we see the hand, we see Billy, we see in the distance, we can see snippets of the crowd, and bang, done, and then we're out of there, man. Absolutely.
As I said before, and I'll say it again, this is what we got into this business for, is pictures like that, ideas like that. Came out of nowhere. I loved it.
And so I guess, guys and gals, that's kind of us wrapped up for the episode.
I think it is, and I think we're about to go into our season finale next week.
I can't quite believe it, Graham. But
can't quite believe it.
I genuinely can't. I'm not just saying that because I'm British and it's what we say when things are meant to be surprising to us. It's somewhat bonkers. But yeah, we are prepping for our very last episode of this season. So
what I think maybe we should do is maybe not tell our beloved audiences what we're going to do next week. We might have a little special surprise. We might not even tell Lloyd.
I'm not telling Lloyd anything after the words. He's had some very fierce words with me this morning. I'm not telling him anything for at least like a week or two, man. So I'm afraid we're going to have to talk to Lloyd through you and you.
Shall I talk to Lloyd
man,
for
yes,
you?
Please.
I will do that.
Thank you, mate.
So we won't pick. I'll tell you what we'll do. Should we pick a race now?
I think that's a beautiful little teaser. Let's do that. Let's pick the race.
Okay, so I reckon we should go to Navan.
I would love to go to Navan.
For the 540 Kevin Bell Repatriation Trust Pro-Am INH flat race for 4 years plus. So shall we do that?
I think that's fantastic, yeah. I think we should get on there. We've got a big selection.
We've got a big selection. We've got a little bit of a surprise for next week's episode. We won't tell you what it is, I'm afraid, but we would like all of you, to turn up to the Mind Cinema next week, free of charge.
It's on us this time, guys.
This one's on us, except for concessions. Lloyd is going to be spooling up some films for you. It's going to be a big old party as we bid you a fond farewell. But that's next week. This week is episode 11, and I guess it's just up to us to say goodbye for this week.
Yes.
I've had a wonderful time, and I'm so blown away by your pitch for Stiletto.
Well, I've had an equally wonderful time, and thank you for taking me to the dirty, grimy, frenetic, somewhat terrifying landscape of 1917 Australia, man.
Oh, it's no worries, mate.
Oh, there we go. God, I tell you what, Graham, with all the lingo that you've picked up on that accent, mate, I could drop you in Sydney right now and no one would spot a jot of difference, my friend.
Thanks a lot, you flaming galah.
Oh, guys, I wish that you could see how happy Graham is to do that accent to me down here. It's like, honestly.
I get to be out from home and away. It's wonderful. So anyway, we should probably say goodbye to these hoons.
We'll see you later. And it's a real pleasure podding for you guys. And we hope, especially after these accents, that you join us next week. No, I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Take absolutely flipping marvellous care of yourselves, because you bloody deserve it. And we look really forward to seeing you for, crikey, the finale. The finale. Meantime, listen to a lot of Billy Joel, please. Take care, everybody. Love you. Bye. Bye. Well, there we have it. Another episode of Racehorse Movies is over. We both hope you had as much fun listening as we did coming up with these films and recording our pitches. If you enjoyed this, please share it around with your friends and loved ones. And if it wasn't your thing, I don't know, maybe share it with someone you miffed with. Who knows? If it's not for them either, maybe you two can build some bridges over that connection. But if you did like picking up what we put down and you fancy checking out some more content from us, then head over to TheNeverPress.com to take a gander at our novels, poetry and other bits and bobs. Anyway, that's about enough from us. Hope to have you back next time for some friendly chat and barely thought through pitches at Racehorse Movies. Ta-ta!